All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulations Residential Service Companies Home Warranties Virtual Informational Summit. It's good to have you. We've got well over 100 people attending this event. That number should increase. My name is Hemant Macon. I am a policy research and budget analyst with TDLR. And I'm just going to cover a few items on this agenda before I hand it off to our next presenter. As you know, we're meeting today on Microsoft Teams. For purposes of this summit, cameras, microphones, and chats have been disabled for attendees. However, if you look at agenda item number 3 and in the invite that we sent out on Friday, you'll have the opportunity to engage with us through Poll Everywhere. David Gonzalez, Deputy Executive Director, will cover that tool a little bit more, but we will engage you with Poll Everywhere. So you'll see that under agenda item number 3. Under agenda item number 7, when we get into questions and answers, you'll be able to ask your questions via Poll Everywhere again. I'm going to back up a little bit. Under agenda item number 6 for our overview of I'm sorry, agenda item number 4. I had my numbers wrong. For our overview of the rules time frame and key dates, if you look at the bottom of the agenda, and everyone should have received an agenda in their invitation, there's a text box with all of the key dates that we will be covering. If you have any questions that you need to send about the summit itself, or a question that you'd like to ask, if you're having issues with Poll Everywhere, if you go to agenda item number 7, there's an email address, osc.scp.rsc@tdlr.texas.gov. You can send those questions there. It'll hyperlink in your agenda. However, as we move forward with today's main objective, which is to get everybody into a service contract provider licensure. Questions related to your application, financial security, making the conversion from TREC to TDLR, those should be sent to the email address that you see in agenda item number 6, which is tools.team@tdlr.texas.gov. Okay. One last thing before David Gonzalez gives an overview of TDLR. I just want to remind everybody that our agenda is a funnel for today. We're going to start broad, and we're going to start funneling down the information that you need to get you into the proper licensure, so that we can carry on with your business as a residential service contract company. All right, David, the floor is yours.
Am I mistaken, Hammond? Are we not going to Mr. Bruno?
Oh, we are. David, thank you. And everybody, before we do that, just to remind you, this meeting is being recorded. So if you need access to this video afterwards, we'll be able to provide that link. And yes, David, through my notes, I completely skipped over Steve Bruno, number 2. So Steve, it's all yours.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Emmett. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Steve Bruno. I'm the Senior Government Relations Officer here at the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, and I'm very excited to welcome you all to this virtual summit. I want to start out by explaining to everybody who we are at TDLR. I recognize that for many of you on the call, you may have not worked with our agency before, and I want to tell you a little bit about us by talking about a couple of our key core values, and then our agency's mission and our agency's vision. We live, all of our employees here at TDLR, we guide ourselves by certain core values. And one of those, the one that I think is on display the most today, is open and free communication. And what we mean by that is that we want to interact with you. We want to know your concerns. We want to be able to address your questions and make sure that you understand everything that's expected of you as a licensee, and understand what you can expect from us as regulators. And that begins with open and free communication. And the other core value that I want to highlight today is customer service. Customer service, we strive to create an exceptional customer service experience for everyone. That includes Texans who may be purchasing some of your products, and it includes you all as our licensees. The mission that we have at the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation is to earn the trust of Texans every day by providing innovative regulatory solutions for our licensees and for those who they serve. And our vision is to be the best at creating those next practices that will deliver low-cost licensing and regulatory services and an exceptional customer experience. As you all probably know, the reason that we're here today and the reason that you got to us is from a bill that was passed by the legislature, and it was Texas TDLR's sunset bill, which extended our agency until the year 2033 and made some changes. That was House Bill 1560, is what I'm talking about, from the last regular session of the Texas Legislature. And one of those changes was removing the regulation that you all used to be under at the Texas Real Estate Commission and taking the products that you all sell, home warranties, and adding them to our existing program called service contract providers. So you all are now the fourth type of product that is offered under our service contract provider program. So you're now part of Chapter 1304 of the Occupations Code, which is our service contract provider program, as residential service contracts. We're very excited that you all are part of our TDLR family and part of this regulatory model that we have. We have a total of 38 regulatory programs, including service contract providers. And with many of those programs, we have what's called an advisory committee. Our commission is made up of 7 members who are appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Texas Senate. And by law, none of those commissioners are allowed to have a financial interest in the programs that we regulate. Therefore, we rely on you as subject matter experts to help us establish and maintain this regulatory program. One of the ways that you'll hear about that later, one of the most important ways that you'll be interacting with us early on is through the rulemaking process, which is when rules will be proposed and you'll have the opportunity to comment on those rules. Today, what we hope to accomplish is by the end of this summit, for you all to have a better understanding of who we are at TDLR and to be able to answer those key questions that you may have. This is an ongoing process. This is a collaborative process. It certainly does not end with today. Today is the beginning, and one of the most exciting things, frankly, that I've been looking forward to since House Bill 1560 came into law. We're very excited to have you all as part of our TDLR family. We're very excited to meet you and to learn, continue learning more about your industry. I'll just end by again saying welcome to our agency. We're excited to be here and we look forward to working with you. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over now to our Deputy Executive Director, David Gonzalez. He's going to talk a little bit more about our agency, and I believe we're going to have a welcome word from our chairman, Chairman Rick Figueroa.
Thank you, Steve Bruno. This is David Gonzalez, Deputy Executive Director of Licensing Services. We have a cameo appearance from the chair of our commission, Commissioner Figueroa. Welcome.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Hey, welcome everybody. My name is Rick Figueroa. I chair the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. I'm an appointee of the governor. You can tell how much they think of my technical skills. They don't give me a camera or a computer. They just let me piggyback on somebody's video, which is interesting in its own right. Listen, I'm here for you. My job is to represent you as well as any and all Texans. And so whatever I can do to help, let me know. And I can tell you with confidence and assurance that the people on this call that represent TDLR are the best in business. They will do what they need to do in order to provide what they need to provide for you to be successful. And so welcome. Again, anything I do, let me know. And take care and have a great Christmas and New Year's.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
So that was definitely a surprise appearance, but I will tell you that our commissioners do care about what we do here, and they get themselves involved. They've actually asked us to walk with our customers on a regular basis, and they model those sentiments for us. So again, thank you for joining us today. I am the Deputy Executive Director of Licensing Services, so I oversee customer service, the licensing division, and education examination division. I'm here to give you a very brief overview. Some of it's going to repeat some of what Mr. Bruno shared. It's going to go into a little bit more detail, but I'm also here to prepare you to participate in this interactive summit. This Poll Everywhere application that we sent out to you in a notice is to allow for interaction. If we go to the next slide, the Poll Everywhere instructions actually share with you instructions on how to get the app. So if you're an iPhone user, go to your app store, choose option 1. It gives you the instructions and you download that app. If you're an Android user, go to Google Play or wherever you get your apps from and download the Poll Everywhere app. If you're a desktop user or a laptop user, we want you to actually go to the web browser and type in pollev.com/TDLR 2021. That will get you to the page you need to be at. Now, you can actually do that on your smartphone as well, but usually that's the route you go when you're using a desktop or a laptop. And the last option, if you don't have a smartphone, that's okay. We still have an option for you to participate as long as you have some kind of texting capability. If you text TDLR 2021 to the number 22333, you will be able to interact with us on most of the questions that we're going to be bringing up and the things that will be asked of you. We're going to actually have some test slides for you, test questions for you to see if it's working. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you the very first question to test out whether or not your Poll Everywhere is actually working. So the first question is, where are you located? So you go to your Poll Everywhere app. I'm going to do the same thing so I can represent Texas. Man, look at that representation coming up. We got California, Nevada, Colorado. There's Illinois. I see Connecticut, Delaware, New York, Indiana. We got Florida represented. I went through our list, and I don't think we're going to see anybody outside in Hawaii or Alaska, but I was hopeful. I was keeping my fingers crossed to see if we go intercontinental on this thing, go outside the continental United States. Got Iowa, Missouri. Any other ones? Keep on testing. We're going to keep it up there just a little second longer so you can make sure it's working for you. Georgia, South Carolina, looks like some border there. And someone's out on a boat in the middle of the ocean on the Atlantic coast. And that's fine. As long as you got your Wi-Fi, you can participate. We got Kentucky, Pennsylvania. All right. So that one was for fun. That was just for testing to see if these things are working the way we expect. The next question is actually takes a little bit more thought. We want you to use one word to describe how you're feeling about the transition to TDLR. One word, don't cheat now. All right, we're seeing excited, unsure, positive, intrigued, eager, hopeful. I like optimistic, curious. Let's see, generally probably goes with another word. Maybe generally okay. Unsure. So these word clouds kind of give us a feeling for what the public is feeling, and we need this kind of interaction if we're going to do a good job. So we're just testing this out. This is kind of the practice questions. Later on, you'll get a chance to actually respond to some questions, and we need this kind of feedback. We need to give them the input so that we'll know what's on your minds. You'll actually be able to type out some of the questions as well. All right, so I think we're going to move on to the next slide. We just wanted you to be set up for Poll Everywhere. I'm actually going to go into an overview of the agency. Again, talking about some of the things that Mr. Bruno touched on, but I want to make sure that we repeat it and it gets kind of stuck in your head. because we want you to know who we are. Mr. Bruno shared with you our mission and vision. I'm going to tell you, I can't speak for all executive about being a geek, but some of us here at the agency are geeks about this stuff. The words that are in these statements are something that we really worked on. We thought about every word that we put in here, and to earn the trust of Texans every day, it's not just words to us. It means something. We work hard to get that accomplished. To be the best, our executive director, Mr. Francis, is very competitive, so he made sure that this was included in the vision that we had, to be the best at creating next practices that deliver low-cost licensing and regulatory services and an exceptional customer experience. We really thought about these words, and a vision is something that we aspire to, but we may not always achieve it. There's some good competition out there, other state agencies that are doing a good job. We want to be the best. So it's sometimes very competitive. We have to keep on our game, and actually the customers that we serve keep us honest. They let us know whether or not we're satisfying those criteria and really achieving our vision. If you do a good mission and vision statement, and again, we studied Amazon, we studied Google, Apple, all those larger companies that have branding initiatives, Nike. We wanted to have the same concept to run our business here for the state. And if you do a good mission and vision statement, your philosophy will fall right in line. It'll make it easier to achieve because they'll support each other. It'll lay the foundation. So to achieve smaller and smarter government, our philosophy, we honor the public by trying to be fair, transparent, and efficient. And again, not just words to us. Those are things that we take to heart. We value our customers and our coworkers, and we seek their input. This summit is evidence of that. It's one example. There are other opportunities you're going to have to give us input. This summit is one of those. We we foster innovation and change by challenging the status quo. So we're in front of you today expecting to have some tough questions asked of us. We do this during summits. We do it in advisory boards every time we take public comment. We do it during strategic planning. Every 2 years we go around and we ask for what we can do better. These are things that we found important. Recruiting, empowering, and rewarding employees. I cannot tell you how difficult it is in the Austin market in particular to keep good employees. It's very competitive out in the job world right now. And so we do our best to empower our staff to make them feel good about their jobs. We try to develop their skills to the best of our ability, and we try to reward them as well. And at the end of the day, our job is to try to transform and improve services for our customers. If they're entrusting new programs to us or existing programs that need just a little bit of a tweak, it's our job to make sure that we're improving those services to the public. So that's a little bit about who we are. Mr. Bruno talked with you about my favorite core value, open and free communication. I'm glad it's at the top. My staff will tell you I try to model that behavior. It's so important. I really, truly believe that miscommunication and misunderstanding are some of the biggest barriers to achieving our goals. So at any time in our processes, whether it's rulemaking process, whether it's talking with our customer service staff or dealing with one of our licensing division staff on an application that you've submitted, we're trying to understand what you want. We're trying to serve you best. And sometimes the challenges are just miscommunication, misunderstanding, finding the right words to communicate. So that one's a really important core value for us. Creating an exceptional customer service experience. Again, trying to do things differently, try to think out of the box. I know that's a term that's used a lot, but this summit and other things that we do, like our strategic planning process, allow for customer service to be done from all levels. It's not just from my customer service division staff on the phones and emails. It's from every division, even in our enforcement division, where we're sometimes having to pursue the bad actors and players. It's our job to provide good customer service. So throughout the agency, whether it's our finance division, whether it's our general counsel division, we're trying to provide the best customer service for all the things we're responsible for, and it's a lot. Teamwork built on individual strengths and ingenuity. I got to tell you, I hear it. It's almost weekly at least. Teamwork makes the dream work. One of our OSC representatives usually says that, and I will tell you that she means it. When she says it, she means it. And I think you'd be amazed at the diversity that we have here at this agency and the willingness of the individuals we employ to challenge the status quo. They're not just going to be yes people. If we're doing something and it just doesn't seem right, doesn't sound right, we could do something a little bit better, they're willing to raise their red flag, raise their hand and say, hey, we can do this better, and I think this is how we should get it done. Being accountable to Texas, that should go without saying, but not a lot of people are really sticking to it. We hold that to our core as an important value. We're going to walk with our customers. It's been a charge from the chairman of our commission to walk with our customers and put ourselves in their shoes. So if you were delayed on getting your license, or if you couldn't get to business as quickly as you wanted to, how would you feel? So our staff are working on that every day to make sure that they're empathizing with our customers. We try to lead through innovation. I've got to be honest, this is one of the more difficult ones for us. We have inherited many programs with many diverse legacy database systems. So it's a real challenge for our IT staff to overcome some of those obstacles. We've got some technical debt, but their creative use, they are such hard workers. I mean, I really don't know if we even give them time off during the holidays. They're such hard workers to maintain the things that they do, to take care of our help desk and the issues that we need to address with all the different 9 legacy database systems. It's a lot of work. And in addition to that, the innovation comes from us reviewing processes, things that you may have done at a previous agency or things that you've done as part of the business. We're not going to leave those untouched. We may review those and come up with a process that's different, that hopefully is more effective, more efficient. Also, when we review rules, we're looking to make those more streamlined. Our general counsel's office does a bang-up job leading us through those efforts. Lastly, and it's at the bottom of the heart, again, TDLR has a heart for service, respect and integrity. Again, these are things that we hold dearly. We're going to show respect to each other, to the customers we serve. We're going to hear you out on the things that you need us to help you with, and we're going to use our integrity in all that we do. Make sure that we stick to our commitments and do what we say we're going to do. I appreciate you listening out. Some of those ideas can be abstract, a little touchy-feely for some people, but here at TDLR, it's really been the foundation for our culture and being able to challenge each other to do our best every day. So the next slide has a list of all of the programs we regulate. It's 38 programs. There's over 800,000 plus licensees. I got a couple of those programs up there highlighted. The one that y'all most look like here at TDLR is going to be service contract providers. So that's one that should stand out for you. We got air conditioning and refrigeration program and the electrical safety program. Obviously, those are services that are part of home warranties, and y'all may have had some interaction with those programs or some of the people that we licensed in the past. You may also be familiar with even our industrialized housing and buildings program. It's not the same as a mobile home, it's an industrialized home, but some of those actually get home warranties as well. So these are some of the programs you may be familiar with. Some of the things I expect use on a daily basis, like a barber or a cosmetologist, or at least a weekly basis. We regulate those people, and that's one of our larger programs. Barbers to boilers, cosmetologists to combative sports, and now we've got residential service companies that will be included under the service contract providers heading. It's a long list. One of the most significant probably that happened not too long ago under Senate Bill 202 was the medical and health professions transfer, and that was quite a few programs that came over in that big block. Let me move on to the next slide and talk a little bit about our commission. So our agency is overseen by the Texas Commission of Licensing Regulation. You saw our chair here. We couldn't keep him out if we wanted to. He really does get his hands into the honeypot and tries to make sure that he keeps a pulse on the things that are going on here. They are actually our governing board and our policymaking body. These 7 governor-appointed public members are not paid for their work. Okay? They're doing this on their own time. Neither them nor their spouses can have a conflicting interest in any of the programs we regulate. With 38 programs, that's kind of hard to find those individuals that don't have a touch on some of these programs. So it can be a challenge for us, but they have an interest in public service as well. They model the behavior that they want us to do. They're hard workers, and they show us and give us policy guidance. Of course, all of these programs, y'all know, are enacted by statute. So for architectural barriers program, we've got Chapter 469 of the Government Code. For our cosmetology program, we've got Chapter 1602 and 1603 that addresses what those requirements are for that program. but our agency's enabling statute actually is Chapter 51 of the Occupations Code. So if you want to do a little homework, if you want to really read up on our processes, what our authority is to do CEs, what the authority is to how we do license issuance and rotate them annual, biannual. If you want to know how we do examinations, all that information can actually be read, at least the input taken from Chapter 51, and that's on our website. I'll give you the link later on. So again, for homework, Chapter 51 of the Occupations Code is probably the best way to be familiar with some of the processes that we have here at TDLR. The next slide I want to talk about is our advisory board. So to me, this is one of the most important slides in the deck. Mr. Bruno made reference to it. These are subject matter experts and industry representatives that volunteer their time to provide us input. They play a key role in our success. Many of the industries we regulate have a statutory provision for an advisory board, and we use those industry representatives to help guide our actions. So that's where we get these advisory boards. Again, it can be in the rule process, it can be in summits. These people get rotated through. There's staggered terms to actually accomplish these goals and appoint these people, and they're selected by the commissioners. The chair actually presides over that, and with the approval of the rest of the commissioners, we're able to select advisory board members. All right, on the next slide, we're going to do functional alignment. Now, this is important to understand structure. Usually when I talk about functionally aligned, about our agency, we sometimes get puzzled looks. All it means is that we've got programs that are not in silos. We divide them by their function, by the work that's being done. And all of our program people are divided into their separate divisions. So I'm going to go over the alignment so you can understand. This is an abbreviated organizational chart, but it's important to know how things go. So at the very top, the governor appoints a commission with Senate approval. That's the board that I just told you about, the commission we just told you about. The commission hires and oversees an executive director. That's Mr. Brian Francis. That executive director decides on how he wants to organize the agency. At present, he's decided that he needs 3 deputy executive directors. I'm one. Ms. Christina Kaiser is a deputy executive director, and Mr. Mike Adis-Mendez is the 3rd deputy executive director. And we have our operational responsibilities underneath. There's licensing, education examination division, and customer service under me. Under Deputy Executive Director Kaiser, it's field inspections, regulatory program management, and enforcement. And under Deputy Executive Director Adis-Mendez, it's strategic response, financial services, and information technology. Now, also significant is our executive office. He can't do this work by himself. He's got tons of support, obviously all the staff in these divisions helping support getting the work done, and he'll be the first to tell you that it's our people, the people that we empower, the people that are working hard to up their skill sets and make sure that they're listening to the customers. Those are the ones getting the work done. In executive, he doesn't get things done unless he has a general counsel advising him, unless he has human resources that are able to find people to fill those spots for us for our vacancies, which again is very competitive at this point. Information security, making sure that we're protecting all the data and the license information that we have for our licensees. Process and project management, I can tell you that they have been critical for us being able to keep up with all the workloads we have in project management of things that we're doing. And then lastly, our strategic communications. They work hard to make sure that we're getting the message out, that we're updating our web pages, and we're maintaining a presence on social media so that we communicate with the public as they expect to be communicated with. So next slide, we have licensing totals by population. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because it's not necessarily about the numbers. We expect this program to be a little bit smaller than some of our other programs, but it deserves the same attention. So cosmetologists, top number, 300,000 plus licensees. I don't see them being bumped from first place. We just had our sunset bill, House Bill 1560, that's going to actually require the merging of our bar cause programs together. So I expect the numbers are going to stay high for that program. Number 2 on our list is electricians, and it goes down from there. You'll see service contract providers noted in there at around 376. Y'all will be adding to those numbers, and I expect them to go up. But again, whether you're the weather modification program or transportation network companies, you're going to get the attention necessary from our general counsel, from the rules making, from our licensing division, whatever's necessary to make sure that your program is running. On the next slide, I guess it's important for y'all to know that this isn't something that's come new to us. We have inherited a lot of programs over the years. I've actually been here 26 years, and we've doubled in size, more than doubled in size. The growth started really in 2000, in the 2000 years, 2002, and we've had consolidation every year just about after that, every legislative session after that. The legislature consistently looks to us and our functional alignment to kind of absorb struggling or new programs that need some help. And we use all of our efforts and efficiencies, process review that we can do to try to make improvements where we can. Again, there's no magic formula for this, and every program is different. It's really hard work and listening to our customers. What I can tell you that most of the successes that TDLR has had has come from simply listening to our customers. Every strategic planning session that we have every 2 years, we go to our customers and we ask them, if you were king or queen for a day, if you could do anything, change a rule, change a statute, what would that be? Those are the answers and input that really challenge us and requires us to be creative in how we administer a program. So these are things that are the genesis. This input, this feedback that we're hoping to getting from you today has been some of the genesis for our greatest innovations and achievement at the agency. Next slide is streamlining rules. I think you've probably already seen, you're going to see our general counsel has worked really hard for every program, trying to reduce the amount of words, trying to make things simpler to reference, simpler to find. We find that if our customers know where to find the rules and the requirements, they're more likely to comply with those requirements. But you'll see from this list here that we've taken from word count alone of rules from prior programs and prior agencies, we've reduced those sometimes to half, sometimes less than half in the word differences, trying to do a better job. We've got a 45% rating on reduction of requirements and just the verbiage that can make it difficult to comply with administrative rules per program. So kudos to our general counsel's office on all their efforts. It continues. We do these reviews on a regular basis, every 4 years at least, trying to make things simpler for our customers. Couple more slides, and then I promise I'll be done. Some key statistics regarding our licensee population. So 847,935. That's individual licensees and businesses and facilities. We do license businesses and facilities as well. We have schools in there, CE providers. There's other types of licenses that we issue. Inspections is something we also do for those programs that have an inspection component. We have 302,000 inspections. Our enforcement division, keep them really busy with complaints, whether it's consumer complaints, industry complaints. We've got 10,000 investigations go along with those complaints. They have to be investigated. And I'll tap our customer service division for the emails answered and the phone calls returned. We have a great contact center where we can actually see what our turnaround time is on phone calls and emails, what our wait time is. We've worked really hard to try to be able to track that and improve on our customer service there. Last 2 slides are probably the most important. If there's nothing else you're going to remember today, I've repeated some of the things that we want you to remember. But if there's nothing else that you remember, please remember our website, the www.tdlr.texas.gov. That is how we communicate with the public. If you sign on for the email notifications based on the programs you're interested in, you'll only get emails for those programs, and it'll keep you abreast of any rule changes, rule updates, summits. If we need input, anything that we are going to do, we're going to try to communicate via our website. And lastly, because our staff works so hard to try to keep the pulse on our social media, follow and like us, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. We have accounts up there, and we need the feedback. We have customer service staff helping our Office of Strategic Communications to respond to any questions and issues that may come up. And that's how we really keep abreast of what's going on out in the public. That's all I have. Appreciate your time and attention to this. If you can't tell, I'm pretty passionate about where I work. Even though I've been here 26 years, I didn't expect to be here more than a year or two, but it's a great place to work, and I'm really proud of what we've been able to accomplish. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to, I believe, Miss Elizabeth Salinas Stripmatter, if that's right. And I'll give up the mic.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Salinas Stripmatter. I'm the Assistant General Counsel who is on the Service Contract Provider program. It seems like I'm having an issue turning my camera on. We did not have this issue when we were running through this morning, so I apologize that you cannot see me. I am going to share my screen with you if it allows me to do that, so that we can talk about the rules and financial security. And it seems like it's loading. I think everybody can see that. However, there we go. All right. So again, apologies that you can't see me, but we're in a PowerPoint presentation anyway, so it probably doesn't matter that much, except now I cannot move my slides. We're going to take a quick little break here to see if we can get me back up.
Okay, everybody, we're having a bit of a technical difficulty sharing a slide. It might be because I started off the summit on an out of order agenda, so we can chalk it up to that. Please stand by, give us a few more minutes. While we're waiting, again, just to remind everybody, we are gathered here today to explain to everybody that was licensed at the Real Estate Commission who TDLR is, and number two, to get you on the pathway to licensure as a service contract provider and or administrator. So again, our agenda is a funnel. We're starting off broad. After the break, we will get into SCP licensing. Laura Hernandez, our licensing manager, will walk you through that application process. And if you have any questions related to your application, what does the form mean? What does the field require? You can send those questions to the email address under agenda item number 6, which is tools.team@tdlr.texas.gov. All right. Again, please continue to stand by. So what we want to do is, starting today, we want to begin licensing everybody as a service contract provider under the alignment and framework at TDLR, which is what House Bill 1560 did by moving your licensure from the Real Estate Commission that we call TREC into TDLR. Just to give you some numbers, there are 68 companies who hold a TREC residential service company license. So there are 68 of you in some form or fashion that need to obtain our SCP license. With that, you'll see some refinements. You'll see lower fees. You will see other things that are not required. For example, at the Real Estate Commission, and I'm going to go and preempt some questions right now, but we know that you've been asking about, do I have to file an annual report or a mid-year report? Under SCP licensure, that answer is no. That requirement was also repealed when your Company Act was repealed on September 1st. Under SCP licensure, we also don't require applications to approve a contract or changes to an approved contract. Under SCP licensure, we don't require an application to approve a schedule of charges or changes to an approved schedule of charges. You were accustomed to filing those things throughout the year at TREC at around $250 of filing. You were accustomed to paying $3,500 a year to file an annual report, and also $3,500 to file an initial application. All these things are not required at TDLR under our service contract providers program. Okay, so again, we will cover with you that alignment when we get to that item in a little bit. So let's do this. We are actually up at our break time right now. We need a few more minutes to work out this technical issue. Thank you again, everybody. Let's take a 5-minute break. We will come back at 10:50 a.m. according to the clock in my computer. And so we'll stay muted, cameras off, up until 10:50 a.m. and we will see you then. Okay? Thank you. All right. Good morning again, everybody. Hemant Macon with TDLR. We are coming off of our break. Next up on our agenda, we're going to take you to agenda item number 4. This time I'm actually going to keep it in order, and I'm going to hand it over to Elizabeth Salinas Strittmatter, Assistant General Counsel for our Service Contract Providers Program. As Elizabeth is presenting, you will see obviously her presentation, but look at the bottom of your agenda. There's a text box with the key dates that impact implementation of getting everybody into an SCP license. And Ms. Strittmatter will cover those items. Okay, Elizabeth, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I appreciate your patience with our technical problems. I am not technically savvy, and so it is just apropos that would have happened during my presentation, and everyone else did perfectly fine. My name is Elizabeth Salinas Strittmatter, and as I said earlier, I am the Assistant General Counsel who is assigned to the Service Contract Provider Program, and I have been working on this program for the past 5 years. And I welcome you to our family, TDLR family, and I welcome you to our Service Contracts Provider family as well. This morning, I'm going to provide you with an overview of the rules and the rules process here at TDLR, as well as talk about some financial security requirements that are of the utmost importance and some key dates that Hemant bulleted out on the agenda for you. If I have somebody who's assisting me with the slides, so if you'll please go to the second slide for me. This is a high-level overview of what my slideshow is going to encompass today, and it'll be rulemaking at TDLR, transparency in the rulemaking process, and where we are and where we're going in terms of the rules. I think that is probably the most pressing issue that we have today that most of our attendees are concerned about. I hope to be able to give you some answers here today. And of course, you're always welcome to submit questions to us as we run through. So let's start off by talking about HB 1560 and how HB 1560 impacts our residential contract rules. So as many of you may know, HB 1560 requires that TDLR enact rules specific to the residential service contract by June 1st of 2022. The residential service company rules under TREC were transferred over whole cloth on September 1 to the Texas Administrative Code Chapter 77, and they were tacked on to the existing rules for service contract providers. The applicable rules for residential service contracts are now at 16 Texas Administrative Code 77.92 through 77.10. And if you look at those rules, what you will see is that you'll see all the rules for service contract for the traditional 3 service contract providers. And then towards the end, you will see that we lifted whole cloth, the TREC rules, and put them into the service contract provider rules. And there's a reason why I did that. And the reason is because we are going through an extensive rule review and an extensive review of this program as a whole. And that began in June of 2021, and it remains ongoing as we speak. And our goal here through the rules is to really blend what was happening at TREC to our service contract provider administrative rules, but only retaining what is really necessary from a licensing and enforcement perspective, and then seeing what we can get rid of or what we no longer need from those old TREC rules. So I anticipate that the rules will be extensively modified with specific rules and requirements eliminated or retained in order to be consistent with our existing requirements for the 3 other types of service contract providers. What we are essentially doing in the rules is creating an even set of rules for the previously existing 3 types of service contracts, so that these residential service contracts come in and they blend seamlessly into our SCP program. So rulemaking will continue through the end of 2021 and into early 2022. And while I am not prepared today to share a draft of those rules, what I can tell you is that the rules are currently under internal review by TDLR, and I am working on preparing those rules for review by the Office of the Governor. And once those rules are then reviewed by the Office of the Governor, what we will do is we will publish them in the Texas Register for public comment. And we anticipate that will happen sometime in January, February, or 2022. Now, the important thing to know about that is that once we publish in the Texas Register, you will receive a communication telling you that those rules are now up for your first look at what those rules look like. You will have a 30-day comment period during which time you can send us your comments on the rule draft. You can tell us what you think works, what may not work, and what I will do is at the end of that public comment period, I will take all of those comments and we will look at them in the General Counsel's office to determine if we're going to go and redraft in response to those public comments. So that public comment period is critical for the industry to have its voice heard and for individual residential service contract providers to really be able to have some input into the process. And so let's talk about that process. Let's talk about how we get into actual publication at the Texas Register. So for those of you who are in Texas, you're familiar with this. For those of you who are not, you may not be familiar with this, but the Administrative Procedure Act, which is in the Texas Government Code at Chapter 2001, governs the rulemaking process for all state agencies. And essentially what it does is it provides the minimum standards and the structural framework through which we engage in rulemaking for all of the 38 programs that you heard about here today. So there is a consistent procedure and process for rulemaking at every state agency, including TDLR, and that was true as well of TREC. And what the APA does is it provides specific timeframes that we have to hit in order to ensure that those rules follow this process of rulemaking, that we go through the public comment period, and then we eventually are going to get to presenting this to the commissioners. And I actually have a slide that walks us through the process, which I'll present here in a few minutes. But let's talk about the sources for rulemaking. So there are several sources for rulemaking, including legislative changes, like what we see in HB 1560, which removes, which essentially eliminated Chapter 1303 and brings y'all over to us. Advisory boards, which we do not have in the service contract provider program, TDLR staff, a 4-year rule review, which we engage in with all 38 of our programs, and a rule petition. And a rule petition is when any interested member of the public can submit a petition to have us consider a rule in any of our programs. So our rules here in reference to the residential service contract, we are driven by the legislative mandates in HB 1560, and we have broad authority within HB 1560 and the existing service contract provider statute at Chapter 1304 to engage in rulemaking. So the rules that you will see in relation to the residential service contract will reflect the spirit of HB 1560 and the TDLR philosophy, which you've heard a lot about today, which is to have streamlined rules that coexist with the governing service contract provider statute, which here is your citation for that, attorneys who are in the audience. It is at Texas Occupation Code, Chapter 1304. And the big goal that we have for these rules is to reduce regulatory burdens and processes wherever that is possible. And I think that is probably something that sounds like that might be some good news for some of you guys. So here's that chart that I was talking about. This is our rulemaking process. And as you can see, it's very extensive. We start with drafting. We go through our internal review, which is where we currently are at. Then you see the third step is review by the governor's office. We do not have an advisory board and service contract providers, so we do not go into that blue box. Once the rules are reviewed by the governor's office, the proposed rules are filed and published in the Texas Register. You've heard me talk about the 30-day public comment. You've heard me talk about the review of public comments to determine whether we will redraft in response to those comments. The second advisory board, obviously not applicable here. Then what happens is those proposed rules will be presented at a commission meeting. And at that meeting, we will talk about any public comments that might be of particular import to the discussion. And I will present the rule to our commissioners for consideration of acceptance. If they vote to accept the rules as written, there you will see an adoption notice filed and published in the Texas Register, and the effective date of the rules that we're using for this set of rules is June 1st of 2022, which is specifically stated in HB 1560. If you have any questions about the rulemaking process or you want to read more, I've provided a slide here which directs you to those resources. The Office of the Attorney General has an amazing handbook, administrative law handbook on rulemaking. That's available on their website. I would recommend any attorney who's dealing with residential service contract clients, you may want to go and download that and take a look at that. That will give you a really good sense of how this process works. So now let's talk about the financial security requirements in Article 4 of HB 1560. I'm not sure what slide y'all are looking at. Hopefully you're looking at the same one that I am. All right, so financial security in HB 1560 is a little complex. And so recognizing that it is complex, we wanted to take a few minutes here to talk about that. So Section 4.12 allows licenses that were in effect on September 1, 2021 to maintain the status quo in relation to your financial security amounts until September 1st of 2026. So what that means is whatever y'all had on September 1st, you can keep it in terms of financial security if you choose to do so until September 1 of 2026. However, if you're an existing licensee and you want to offer service contracts beyond those relating to your portfolio of residential service contracts, there are two choices that you have in relation to financial security. If we can kick over to that slide, please. So the licensee may retain existing security amounts, your dollar amounts for your residential service contracts, and add additional security for all other service contracts using the financial security requirements in Texas Occupation Code 1304.151. If you are currently using a bond, which most of you, but not all of you are using, this first option will allow you to continue using the bond as long as you have listed TDLR as the obligee by September 1 of 2022. However, you will have to choose a new financial security type to cover the additional service contract, because our service contract provider statute in 1304 does not provide for bonds. That is a key difference between Chapter 1303 that existed for TREC and Chapter 1304 over here at TDLR. So you may want to start thinking and talking about that now if you do plan on adding additional service contracts. How are you going to structure your financial security documents and instruments so that they are in line with 1304.151? The second option that you have is that you can combine your financial security for all of the service contracts that you want to offer so that they meet the minimum requirements calculated by the department depending on the type of service contracts that are offered. This would require you to effectively move away from the current financial security instrument that you're using. So if you're using a bond, you will have to get new financial security type for your combined service contract. This is a particularly difficult and complex area in 1560. And it's amazing how complex it is given that the section is so small on this in HB 1560. But we are here to walk you all through this, and I believe Laura Hernandez, who will be presenting after me from licensing, will delve a little bit more into how we can offer some assistance for you. So on the last slide, you heard me talk a few minutes ago about needing to update your financial security so that it notes that TDLR is the obligee. So that is also found in HB 1560. By September 1 of 2022, you are required to list us as a party to the financial security document and also replace each reference from TREC to TDLR. That's a lot. I think I'm out of time, but on this slide, you will see my contact information. My email address is very long. I suggest that you screenshot it, or of course, you can send an email to TDLR just asking for my email address. And failing that, you can always call me at 512-463-7352. If you all have any questions about rules or financial security, please use the mechanisms that we're using to gather questions, and I will see if I can address them to the best of my ability when we get to the question and answer time. I appreciate all of you taking the time to attend today. I hope that that presentation gave you a little bit of clarity on where we're headed, and you can look for those rules sometime in January or February. Thank you.
Elizabeth, thank you so much. It's me again, everybody. Before we move on to Laura Hernandez, I just want to give you some reassurances. We're running about 5 to 10 minutes late, thanks to Murphy's Law and technical issues. So don't worry, we're going to pace through our licensing overview as we move down this funnel of an agenda. And we're going to give you ample time to ask questions. So Laura, the floor is yours, and she will present on further alignment for SCP licensure. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Laura Hernandez. I'm the licensing manager for the tools team here at the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. I'm going to go over the SCP application process and some key information, general information about licensing. I apologize, I didn't have this up. Sorry, just want to make sure I keep in line with everything. Here's a little bit of information. Dee Dee McEachern, she's the director of the licensing division. Again, my name is Laura Hernandez. I'm the licensing manager of the tools team. I have a team of 8 that handles 9 different programs that handle applications and renewals, and they go from basic applications to complex applications. We process licenses from towing to podiatry to behavior analysts, professional employer organizations, and service contract providers in 4 different licensing systems. You can contact us directly at tools.team@tdlr.texas.gov. So general information about the service contract provider. The application fee is $250. The license term is 1 year. Once licensed, renewal notices are sent out 65 days prior to expiration. We do send those out by mail. Once it's time for you to renew, the renewal fees vary depending on the number of contracts sold in the preceding 12 months. So you can send here 0 to 250 contracts is $250, 251 to 499 contracts is $500, and 500 or more contracts is $1,000. And those renewals would be mailed in along with the renewal notice, those fees. Application requirements. The application is available now at our TDLR website, www.tdlr.texas.gov. You would be able to download the form, fill it out, and mail it in with a check or money order. There is not an online application. Additional forms required, information required to send in with your application is a service contract provider for personal information form. This is for each controlling person of the applicant. And then also you must send in your financial security requirements. This is a picture of the actual application. You'll see the first page is general information. This is going to be the name of the provider, type of ownership, federal tax ID, mailing address, point of contact. We want to be sure we get a good point of contact. We do try to email as much as possible if we need additional information, or if something's lacking, we instead of mailing out, we like to get everything processed right away and do email. Number 10, and this is going to be, we've revised this to include the providers that will be offering residential service contracts. In number 10, you would choose if you're going to be doing either number 1, number 2, 3, and here is going to, the last bullet is going to be to provide a service reimbursement for a residential service contract. And here is where you're able to enter in your Texas Real Estate Commission license number, your TREC license number. That way we can go back and identify your information for any transfer of information that we have from TREC. And then underneath that, you'll indicate the different products or services that you will be covering with the service contracts. And you can check any of that apply. If you also cover any other services such as electronics, appliances, and residential service contracts, you can check all of them, or if it's only residential service contract, you can check that one. And of course, if there's something additional that's not listed here, you can write it in. Number 11 will be the contracts sold or issued, and this is the number of contracts sold or issued in the preceding 12 months in Texas. The second page will have information regarding how consumers are able to purchase provider service contracts. You'll just answer any of the information, if there's any website, if you have any administrators that will be administrating these contracts on behalf of the provider, any sellers. That information can be sent to us. You answer the questions, and then if you marked yes to any of that, as it says here, you'll attach any of the documentation, websites, administrator information, and that you would send that in addition with this application. Number 13 talks about the controlling persons, and it gives you a definition regarding the controlling person, and it does require that a service contract, that a controlling person for a service contract provider fill out that personal information form. Next is the information regarding financial security requirements, and Elizabeth touched on this information. Currently, for our service contract providers, they are able to choose from a reimbursement insurance policy, which some of you may already have that you had at TREC. They can choose from the 100 million net worth. There's also here a funded reserve documentation sheet that you would send in, and to meet the minimum amount of security deposit with either a letter of credit, certificate of deposit, or a deposit of cash. And then for licensees that came over from the Real Estate Commission, if you were utilizing a bond here, and would like to discuss continuing to use that bond, or how to transfer to a different form of security, however you all decide you want to go forward when applying for this the provider application, you would check this box and contact us. You can contact us at the email address earlier, the tools.team@tdlr.texas.gov, or we have a web form where you can contact us directly from the TDLR website on the contact page. You can just send us a message and let us know, I'm getting ready to do the application. I would like for you all to look over it. I have some questions regarding, the financial security that you had previous, and what you would need to send in. It does list out the requirements needed to use any of these policies. But any questions regarding financial security, please feel free to send us a message before submitting this application. On the last page, references identity recovery service contracts, if anybody offers those with their contracts. And then this is the applicant's signature, title, and signature, printed name, title. This is a copy of the controlling person information form, and this is for the controlling persons. This is going to be their personal information, demographic information. Anybody that submits this form, we do a name-based DPS check on any controlling person that submits this personal information form to us. There is a list of questions here. If there are any questions that have a yes next to them, it does tell you to send in, attach a copy of any documentation explaining the information regarding any of the answers to these questions in field number 12. And if you have any questions regarding any of those questions, please feel free to email us or contact us through the webpage, and we'll be happy to go over this form with you all. And then the last page is going to just be the signature of the applicant. For the for the personal information form, we do require the signature of the actual controlling person. Next, we do for any administrators, and that administrator is someone other than the provider of the service contracts or an employee of the provider who is responsible for the third-party administration of a service contract. They do need to register and be licensed as a service contract administrator. Some general information about that license. The application's fee is $250. The license term is 1 year. Again, renewal notices are sent out by mail 65 days prior to expiration, and the renewal fee is always $250. This is a sample copy of the application. It's just the name of the administrator, the type of ownership, physical location, point of contact, again, very important so that we can email in case there's any questions. And then number 10 would list the actual provider name and provider license number of who they're administrating contracts for. The second page is going to be for the controlling persons of that administrator applicant. We do not conduct background checks for the controlling persons for an administrator, but we do require that we have the information. They do answer the questions with the name and percentage of ownership. If there's more than 3 listed here, an additional sheet is fine to submit with the application. And then the the administrator applicant can sign this application to submit to us. And that is a really brief overview, and I know there's probably a lot of specific questions, but we're happy to answer any questions. We're happy to review any applications prior to you all submitting them by mail. Feel free to email us at tools.team@tdlr.texas.gov, and send us any questions regarding financial security, regarding applications. If you need somebody to go over the application with you, my team is happy to get with you, set up a time to contact you, and go over any questions. And that concludes my presentation.
Laura, thank you so much. Laura brought us into the focal point of our funnel of an agenda, which is to get everybody into a TDLR SCP provider or administrator license. Again, the applications for that are open. The form has been updated. It is on our SCP webpage at tdlr.texas.gov. You'll see that under programs and license types. And you can start that application process today. We would like for everybody to work towards obtaining an SCP license by February of next year. We're using this time frame only because it fits with the continuing alignment of your license from TREC into the TDLR license framework. We're going to open this up to questions now, and don't worry, we'll give you plenty of time. In order to ask a question, as you did with David's presentation, we're going to use Poll Everywhere. You can start typing in your questions, and we will answer them to the best of our ability. If we cannot answer a question at this time, or if it requires a bit more review and research, then we request that you send that question to the email address under agenda item number 7, which is osc.scp.rsc@tdlr.texas.gov. and we'll get back to you at that point. It's a fun long email address. Why not? And before we start questions, I just want to remind everybody again, as you've heard presented by everyone so far at this point on the agenda, under a TDLR service contract provider and or administrator license, there is no $3,500 application fee for a license. There are no $3,500 annual reports. There are no mid-year reports. There are no $250 filings for an application to approve a contract or changes to an approved contract. And lastly, there are no $250 filings for an application to approve a schedule of charges or changes to an approved schedule of charges. That is a significant difference from a TREC residential service company license and a TDLR service contract provider's license. Okay. So we've got several questions popping up. We will get to those in 1 second. Just bear with us. Okay, the first question I see is, can you use funded reserve to pay claims?
Funded reserve, that is an option for financial security. However, it's best to send in that question so that we can further look into it and just make sure that we're on the same page of what you're asking. But yeah, we do offer funded reserve as a form of financial security.
Okay, Laura, thank you. The next one is kickbacks or spiffs for agents. Yeah, if you need more information on that, please send that to the OSC email address under item number 7. If we are already licensed with TREC, do we need to submit another application with TDLR by February 2022? Yes, you do. And you can request that application at tools.team@tdlr.texas.gov, or you can find it on our service contract providers webpage under forms. Do existing license holders need to reapply for a license, or do we need to apply with TDLR to renew our license? Yes, you do. Again, send that your request to the tools.team email address, and we are prepared to address your individual situation. I want to also remind everybody at TREC, you were issued a company license under Chapter 1303 of the Occupations Code. That statute at TREC has been repealed by our legislature effective September 1st. So therefore, there are no longer residential service companies. Instead, you're offering a residential service contract, a product under an SCP license. Okay, so that's why the two licenses are not a one-for-one transfer, and we need to get everyone on an SCP license. What if you have a company that holds an SCP license and a TREC or RSC license? Can we just move? Oh, hang on. So can we just move under SCP? Yes, you can. Again, we will address that issue with you upon application. We do know that about a third of the 68 companies at TREC had TDLR SCP licenses, which is another efficiency to have put the program year. And we will get your license updated for the residential service contract piece. If TDLR is not approving forms and the schedule of charge updates, do the forms still need to be submitted to TDLR? No, they do not. The only form we need you to turn in is our SCP application form. Great question. TREC required a funded reserve and a financial security. Are both still required, or just the financial security? The financial security level that you maintained at TREC, which quite a few were bonds, some were CDs, the law permits you to maintain that level of security until September 1 of 2026. By September 1 of 2022, the payee or obligee on that security has to be changed from TREC to TDLR. Okay, so again, when you apply, we'll deal with that piece on a one-on-one basis. But essentially, the security you kept at TREC, you may keep so long as you are limited to only residential service contracts for upwards to a 5-year period. Okay. We are a self-administrator, would need to submit an application as both provider and administrator. If not, which application should we submit? Okay, you would just submit the provider application, right? If we had a license with TDLR and TREC, are these now merged into one license? No, they're not. That is not the situation. The TREC license was issued under Occupations Code 1303, which has been repealed. That it was a company license. TDLR SCP licenses with residential service contracts are issued under Occupations Code Chapter 1304. So they are not merged. They cannot be merged. The very license that you have, the law in which it was issued, has been repealed. If our parent company meets the 100 million, can we end our bond and funded reserve?
Right, so you can meet the financial security requirements with any one of those. So as long as the documentation is submitted that meets those requirements, then you would just have to use one of those if that's the way the applicant chooses to go. Again, we can go over that once you send in the application and just look at the material submitted.
Laura, thank you. I want to make sure the bond and reserve required by TREC are good till 2026, as long as the bond is transferred to TDLR by September 22. And if not, the financial requirement can be met with a letter of credit for $250,000. Is that accurate? Let's give us 1 second.
I think I'm going to need some more specifics in order to really be able to answer that question. So if you'll go ahead and submit that with some particulars to our mailbox, I will take a look at that and respond directly back to the questioner.
Elizabeth, thank you. And again, your primary email address to send in additional questions or application requests are tools.team@tdlr.texas.gov. There is the other longer osc.scp, but either one works. But we're again refining our process to focus on the tools.team email address. And again, some questions that require further research, we're going to ask you to send that in writing, and we'll get back to you individually. Okay, next question. Thanks, my name is Aaron Luntz, and I'm representing the Service Contract Industry Council, which represents a wide swath of impacted licensees and stakeholders that will benefit from HB 1560 and the TDLR efforts, many of whom are likely participating in this call. I really don't have a question, rather a comment or two. First, we want to thank the state of Texas and the TDLR for your efforts. The SCIC has been very involved in this process, and the efforts that have been taken by TDLR are very well received, and we appreciate the efforts. We feel this is a natural evolution that successfully consolidates the regulation of all types of service contracts under a single regulator, which will lead to efficiencies and other benefits to providers and consumers. In addition to the efficiencies gained without having to file annual reports, submit retail forms, and the immediate impact of removing rate filings that were required under TREC. We are excited to partner with the TDLR in any way to move forward. We look forward to the publication of the new rules in January, February of 2022, and fully expect to engage in comments as appropriate within the 30-day comment period. We are here to help, so please let us know if the SCIC can assist TDLR in any way for the ultimate benefit of Texas consumers. Aaron, thank you so much for those comments. We appreciate that and look forward to the continued alignment.
Aaron, can you go ahead and email me personally at elizabeth.salinas-strittmatter@tdlr.texas.gov? I'd like to touch base with you personally. Thank you for the comment.
Yeah, thank you. We really appreciate that. Aaron captured the spirit of this transfer. Of course, we know we have the letter of the law, we have the spirit of the law. We are working very hard to accomplish both ends for you RSCs and for your customers and clients. All current surety bonds should be rewritten on the new bond form listing the TDLR as obligee by June 2022. Okay, the date to change that from TREC to TDLR is September 1 of 2022. The June 1 date is when the rules are required to be in effect. And as Elizabeth presented, the TREC rules, we inherited them whole cloth on September 1. They're under review. You'll get to see those changes in time for June 1, 2022 effective date. Again, contact us at tools.team@tdlr.texas.gov for any bond changes. We have forms for that, and we will get that information to you. Would funded reserves be calculated in the manner, or where could we find guidelines for new funded reserve calculation requirements?
The funded reserve calculations worksheet is on our website, so it's going to be included with the application. So when you go to the applications, when you go to the security requirements, there'll also be information on the funded reserve if you needed those calculations.
Laura, thank you. We use a clip for financial security. Any changes with using a clip? So
yeah, when you send that in, you would, if you're already using one, we would look that over. There is an addendum form that does go to it for service contract providers, and that form is an endorsement form, and that is also on our website to include with your clip. But again, email us so that we can take a look at what the reimbursement policy you already have and make sure that maybe you don't already have that endorsement form, and we can get that to you to have it included.
Laura, thank you. Okay, is there a requirement to submit notice of individual plan contract changes? No, that is not a requirement of SCP licensure. As we continue the alignment and refinement of your TREC license into the TDLR SCP license framework, the biggest change that you'll come across is that we have an annual renewal period, and you can renew 60 days out from your expiration date. At TREC, you had a continuous license that had conditions attached to it, which looked like an annual renewal, but they were not. But at TDLR, and that's for your SCP license, we do annual renewals. We don't require all those form and rate filings throughout the year. If we already have a security deposit for SCP, BSC, can we use the same deposit for residential?
And we would take a look at that application, just depending on the security deposit that you have, just to make sure that nothing additional is needed. You know, if it's a funded reserve, then you have to make sure to do the calculations again, and everything's done at renewal every year. So we would have to look at that just to make sure, just depending on the type of security deposit.
Thank you, Laura. Is there an annual filing other than the license renewal? There are not. Your only annual requirement is a traditional license renewal. To confirm, we do not need to file any forms or rates when we offer a new product. That is correct, Elizabeth?
Apologize. That is correct. You don't need to submit anything other than your application to us, and upon approval, you will be a provider or administrator licensed in the state of Texas to offer your service contracts to the public.
Thank you. So again, at renewal, you are updating everything else up until that point to get you into the next year. Do we need to have a separate license if we want to expand to electronic warranty from the appliance warranty? If not, do we need another security deposit of $250,000?
No, once you submit the application or renewal, depending upon if you're already a licensee, you'll add that on there, and depending on the the type of security deposit. Again, if it's a funded reserve, there's that calculation form that has to be filled out to make sure that that the security deposit is met. But again, those are kind of specific questions that we can definitely go over, or if you need more information on that, just email us.
Thank you, Laura. What is the deadline for SCP applications? Great question. So you can start applying today by sending it to tools.team or looking for the application on our website. We are shooting for a target, a goal of February 1 of next year for these applications to come in. That being said, we do know at TREC by that time you would have been getting ready to file an annual report after closure of your financial year. So we chose February 1 as the time frame for that. We do understand that you too have other business considerations for this transition. And so we will work with you on a one-on-one basis to move your application forward.
If I can just talk a little bit about renewals, because I think this question also begs some questions about renewals. So when you guys were at TREC, you filed your application once and you had a license in perpetuity, or while Chapter 1303 was in existence. Once Chapter 1303 was repealed and you were pushed into the world of 1304, you entered a world where we have yearly renewals. So every year after you receive your license, you're going to have to reapply. And that is also something that licensing can walk you through. So the most important thing right now is for you to get your application in the pipe. And remember that a year from the date that your license is issued, you will have to renew it, because this license existing in perpetuity is now gone.
Elizabeth, thank you so much. That's excellent clarity for everybody. And I think she may have knocked out about 20 questions about that very issue. Are audited financials still going to be required for renewal?
Yes, they are required for renewal. They'll be listed on the actual renewal form about the different kinds of financial security, and the audited financials are due every year.
Laura, thank you. Do we need to update our terms and conditions to remove TREC? Yes.
I apologize. I told you guys at the top I'm technologically challenged. I was on mute. You are going to have to update that. As I said during my presentation, you will have to replace anywhere in your forms and your financial instruments where it makes reference to TREC. You will now have to make reference to TDLR as your governing body.
Elizabeth, thank you. TREC required a bond and a separate funded reserve. Is only the bond required now? In the application under item number 14, you'll see the types of financial security listed. What you had at TREC as of May 1 of 2021, you can carry forward at TDLR with the necessary payee or obligee change up until September 1 of 2026. So again, we'll deal with that with you on an individual basis as you turn in your application. Will TDLR accept public comment during the 30-day period next year on continuation of use of a surety bond subsequent to 9/1/2026?
So you can comment on anything that you feel is pertinent in relation to the rules once they go into publication. However, I would note that the financial security requirements and the financial security types are in statute in 1304. So that would actually require a statutory change to be allowed to continue the use of bonds under a service contract provider program.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Does TDLR conduct audits? And if so, how often? Every 5 years?
To my knowledge, we do not conduct audits. I've never known that to be something that the agency did. I would have to defer to our regulatory program management folks for confirmation on that. And I know a couple of them are watching this call. Oh, I actually got the response sent to me. No, that went away with the old statute. So we will not be conducting any audits.
Great, thank you. Can a provider operate multiple brand names? That's a good question. Do send that in by email. We'd appreciate that. Okay, do we have a license to operate now? Yes, you do. The licenses you have at TREC are valid. They did carry over to TDLR, and they remain in effect until changed by TDLR. So what we're doing with today's summit, with updating our SCP application forms to include the residential service contract product, is we're beginning the process to get you off of your TREC license and into the appropriate forward-looking TDLR SCP license, but that TREC license is valid for operation. Okay, we just need to get everybody into a TDLR SCP license. Reserve calculation. Laura had mentioned that form is available on our website. Okay. We have the regulatory financial funded reserve as one account. We have the security deposit at another account with the custody bank. Can the security deposit be U.S. government bond, or it have to be kept as cash or money market?
Okay, so Chapter 1304 does not allow for bonds. So you're going to have to keep as cash or money market, or a CD is also allowed under 1304. But those bonds, you can keep them until 2026. And I kind of went through that. This is a very complicated question. And so you can keep them until September 1 of 2026 if you choose to do so. But we really want to be functionally aligned with the other service contract providers types. And we do not have bonds under the rules and under the statute. So there's an exception for the folks that are coming over until 2026. And after that, bonds will no longer be a thing unless, as I referenced earlier, there's a statute change.
Elizabeth, thank you. Next question. 1 second, my screen is moving. Can consolidated audited financials be used? Yes. Thank you, Laura. What is the TDLR contact information for consumer complaints to be used on forms? Okay. Yeah, give me 1 second here. If you go to tdlr.texas.gov, on the top header of that homepage, you'll see a link to file a complaint. Complaints are filed online. They can be for this program, and consumers are taken to a directed menu for this program. So you could use that information from our webpage.
Yeah, that complaint page, again, everybody, this is Steve Bruno from Government Relations. That complaint page is where we direct all of our consumers. If anybody has any concerns across our programs, about a possible violation, that's where we want to know. So this is where someone would go online. It can be a consumer, it can be a member of the public, anyone who's concerned about something they see. If you go to that webpage, you'll see that we have quite a robust system where you can upload documents, you can upload photos. Tell us what's going on. Tell us what you're concerned about. Our enforcement division handles all of those complaints, and we have experts in each of our programs, and they'll take a look at what is alleged. They'll take a look at our laws and rules and determine if it's something that we have jurisdiction over. And if so, then a case will be opened. And what happens there quickly is that an investigator will contact both parties, gather evidence, gather the allegations, and hand all that over to an attorney in our enforcement division. The attorney's then going to review what's been found and decide whether or not to issue what's called a notice of alleged violation. And if you do receive such a notice, we do encourage you to follow the instructions, talk to us, because we have, again, our open and free communication core value. We want everyone to understand what's going on, and we're here to help answer questions about that. So the bottom line on any consumer or any member of the public who has a concern about something in this program, please go online and file that complaint.
And Steve, if I can just add to that, you all had an ombudsman over at TREC, and we have continued an ombudsman role here at TDLR. So in addition to the complaint procedure, which Steve outlined, we also have a person who currently is working on trying to resolve disputes through the ombudsman function. And the thought behind that is to get resolution before we actually go into an enforcement action. So you will see some of that trickling down, some of the same things that you were used to at TREC before we actually get to those enforcement cases. I am unsure at this time how long we will continue that ombudsman function, but for now it currently exists and it is something that we're using.
Steve, Elizabeth, thank you. Looks like we have 4 more questions left, and then we'll begin the closeout of today's summit. Reserve calculation question 1304.151B states 40% of gross considerations received minus claims paid. However, the calculation form outlines calculation as gross considerations minus claims paid times 40%. The calculation form does not match the calculation in 1304.151B. Thank you. We will follow up with you if you could send that question again and your contact to the tools.team email address. Subsequent to 2022, is there an industry-wide annual renewal date, or will it just be a rolling 12-month date depending upon when the various companies are licensed under TDLR?
The license will be issued 1 year from once the application is complete. So it'll be 12 months, but it would be from when the application is complete and the license issued.
Laura, thank you. Does TDLR require marketing to be filed?
That's probably a good question to be emailed in just to give specifics on what the marketing is. I mean, we do ask if there's different websites and things like that, but that might be something a little bit more specific. So please email that question to us.
Okay. And I'm also hearing the answer is no, but you could still email that if you want. So thank you. Okay, we're getting close to the end, folks. We're making good progress after starting off the agenda out of order, so not bad. Do we need to have a separate funded reserve calculation if we have residential and electric product warranty?
And that is going to be dependent on if, like Elizabeth said, there's going to be unique situations where depending on if you want to use the financial security for those residential service companies for a certain time period that's allowed by the new rules or laws, and then your electrical service contracts separate. So that's definitely a question to send in to us when you're submitting that application to us, to just contact us first so we can go over those things you might need to submit.
Laura, thank you. Almost, folks, we're getting there. We did not register with TREC in late summer because agency change was in play. We have been waiting for regulatory clarity as TDLR takes ownership. But now it seems that we cannot use a bond as a financial security. Is there any grace period for us with the bond through 2026 if we register with TDLR prior to February 2022? Send that to us.
So let me clarify that. You can continue to use the bond in the amount that you had it at through September 1 of 2026, even if you receive a service contract provider license. There is that exemption that exists within HB 1560 that would allow those existing licensees to do that, if you choose to do that. However, as I said, if you wanted to add on, different types of service contracts, that may affect your use of the bond. So it probably is best for us to talk to you individually, but under HB 1560, you do have the ability to continue to use that financial instrument through 2026. However, once you get past that period, there is no bond under Service Contract Provider Statute 1304.
And again, we will address that issue with you individually upon your application. 2 more to go, folks. I keep saying that, but really we're almost there. Where is the new application located online? I will share a screen and I will take you to our webpage, and I hope I don't break the closing end of the summit. If you go to tdlr.texas.gov, go here to license types, look to the right, go to service contract providers. Here we are at forms and publications. Here are all of the SCP forms, and form number 002 is the primary application that Ms. Hernandez reviewed with you up earlier in the agenda. Okay, that's where you can find it. Let me figure out how to stop screen sharing, and we will do the last question. There is a difference between U.S. bonds as an interest-bearing security instrument and a surety bond. Are both disallowed? Okay, please email that question into us at tools.team@tdlr.texas.gov.
I have a follow-up to the question about audits. So technically, we do not have audits, but I was reminded that under Chapter 51, we do have inspection abilities. So audits are not something that exists per se in the service contract provider world, but inspections do based on our regulatory authority under Chapter 51 as an agency. And inspections are handled by a different division. And if you all want more information on that, we can get together some information about what that division does and what type of inspections they do and what happens during an inspection.
All right, Elizabeth, thank you for that additional clarity. Let's move on to agenda item number 8, closing remarks. And I'm going to hand it off to Christina Kaiser, Deputy Executive Director for Regulatory Services. Christina, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Christina Kaiser, and I am one of the Deputy Executive Directors here at TDLR. My area of responsibility is regulatory services, and so I'm responsible for the enforcement division, the regulatory program management division, and field inspections. I want to echo the comments that other folks have made today. Thank you for participating here today, and welcome to TDLR. We are honored to have you join us. I'd like to emphasize that we believe in a predictable and common sense regulatory climate. One of the commenters earlier spoke about minimizing governmental burdens or governmental interference. We take that really seriously. And I think the best way that we are able to achieve that common sense regulation is by having an ongoing conversation with our regulated businesses and professions. And so I would like to urge you in my closing remarks to participate, just like you've done today. Participate at those other steps in the process where you have the opportunity. So for example, when the rules are published for public comment, as Elizabeth talked about in January or February of next year, take advantage of that opportunity and offer your comments about the rules that you have thoughts about. Similarly, David mentioned our strategic planning process that happens every 2 years in advance of the next legislative session. When that gets started in probably February or March of next year, take advantage of that as well and offer your input. Give us your feedback. You know, at TDLR, we are experts in what we do. We are experts in licensing. We're experts in conducting investigations. We're experts in evaluating evidence, but we're not experts in running a residential service contract provider business. That is where we need to hear from you so that those rules that we propose and adopt do maintain that level of common sense. So again, thank you for being here. Welcome aboard, and we're happy to have you. And I will hand off the mic to Mr. Francis or to David Gonzalez.
How's everyone doing? I'm Brian Francis, Executive Director with TDLR, and I definitely want to echo what the staff has said. Thank you so much for taking time out. Man, we've got everyone from across the nation here today. So I go back a little bit with this program. I used to be the deputy or the assistant administrator for the Texas Real Estate Commission years ago. And so the process of doing the audits, I'm the one that created that. So you're not going to have it here. So let me emphasize that I'm not bringing it here. But so I'm very familiar with working with the residential service contract program, years of doing the audits and going out to Hollywood, Florida, and different places like that, Aurora, Colorado, and visiting the locations and getting to know the industry. So today was about us just kind of introducing ourselves, hopefully taking away some of the anxiety of what change can normally bring. I'm proud of the work that our sister agency, the Real Estate Commission, did, and we're going to pick up the baton and run a little bit further down the road with it. I want to give big kudos to Hemet and Elizabeth and my man Rick and Laura. Y'all are really the voice for TDLR in this particular program, and appreciate the effort and time that you put into this. Hemet, you can now sleep, y'all. He's lost so much sleep and weight making sure that this program goes over well. I'm excited about the number of questions that came through. The level of interest is obvious. We've got some work to do, but today was about building trust, building a connection. I will also echo what Christina said. As we embark on the strategic planning process, I think one of the questions was about the surety bond option, and Elizabeth correctly pointed out that that's a statutory provision. In the strategic planning process, you can identify that as something you think is important that needs to come back, and that's information that we can gather and share with the legislature as needs of the industries that we regulate. So thank you all so much, and I too want to welcome you to TDLR, and it's my pleasure to turn you back over to David Gonzalez.
Thank you, Brian. So you've had a full agenda. I know we've gone over on time, but we have one more question for you, and it's just to gauge where we're at. Now that we've moved a little bit further, you've learned a little bit more about us. The last question that we're going to use Poll Everywhere for is one word to describe how you're feeling about the transition now. How are you feeling now after hearing what we shared, thinking about things, seeing some of the responses? I got excited, happy, great, awesome, still nervous. We got some still nervous. So we still need some work to do there. That's good. That's good. Yeehaw. That may be one of the best one-word responses that we received. I love it. I love it. That's definitely Texas too, right? Maybe Georgia. We'll have to decide. Awesome, optimistic, ecstatic. I appreciate you participating in this way. Again, this is just one of the tools that we utilize. We like to be in person. We like to see people's faces. And most importantly, we like to listen to the customers that we serve. They've given us our best ideas, and just really appreciate the opportunity. And I'll turn it back over to Hemant so he can close us out.
All right, David, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for meeting with us today. We're excited to have you. This is merely one beginning. There'll be many more moving forward. We appreciate your time. We know your time is valuable. We thank you for going over, and wishing everybody happy holidays, a happy new year, stay safe, and we look forward to working with you on your applications. Take care.